This is TWiT.
Apple quarterly results came out last week.
Feels so much. So much.
Did they have a good quarter?
They had a good quarter.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. They surpassed Saudi Aramco to become the world's most valuable company on Friday. Partly because of their Thursday stock results. Shares are up 10%. 10%. And they've even gone up more. In fact, we'll talk about the testimony last week, but all four the big tech companies that testified, their stocks went up $250 billion after the testimony.
They had a shelter-in-place bump. It wasn't after the testimony. It was after shelter-in-place when we were all desperate for new computers and new things to watch on them and buy for them.
Tech, baby. Who knew tech was going to be the next big thing? Really good quarter. Really good. How good was the quarter, Lory? You can give us the rundown.
It was really good.
Really good. Really good.
It was a lot better than they expected, and based on the things that they did really well in, it's actually kind of unsurprising because of the sort of shelter-in-place orders. More people are looking for things like iPads, Macs, laptops, things like that. So they got a boon from that for sure. And they were prepared, honestly. They were not prepared for the pandemic, but they pivoted really well for the pandemic. They got their ducks in a row pretty quickly to prepare for it. So
pretty cool. I was surprised to see 60% of their business is global, not in the U.S. For I think the first time in a long time, iPad and Mac led Apple's financial results. I guess that's the shelter-in-place bump, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. iPhone SE was fortuitous to launch when it did.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, one thing we thought might be worrisome, I didn't think so, but there were a lot of pundits saying, oh, services, they're weak and blah, blah, blah. Services 15% up.
It's a wide category. My favorite thing was Neil Seibart when the results came in going, why didn't all you people tell me you bought new iPads and Macs? It would have changed everything.
Yeah.
People.
Oh.
Because his projections for those were a little off.
Yeah. Whoops. I always go to Six Colors to get Jason Snell's graphs to get some sense of it. iPhone seems less dominant, right? It used to be more than half of revenue.
That's such a good thing, though, because it means the other products are, the big concern was that, because the iPhone is always going to fail. If it does well this year, it's just even less chance it's going to do well next year. Come on, people.
Yep.
And it's showing that, Apple is putting other products in the field and those products can do well. And while iPhone is still a huge earner for them, it's not a huge dependency, which is like Wall Street's favorite thing is grow this business. You grow it so big. Now we're worried about it. Year-over-year total revenue growth 11%. Very nice. Mac up $7 billion. Year-to-year Mac revenue change 22% increase. iPad 31% over last year. iPad revenue $6.6 billion. I mean, the iPhone is $26 billion, although because this is an off quarter, that's actually better than we would have expected. Their peaks are always in the first quarter of the year. We're in Q3. Revenue up 2%. Services revenue, you like that line. It maybe isn't as big a growth as it has been in the past. $13.2 billion in revenue. That's off a little bit, isn't it?
I think with the services, there's kind of a lot of comment on how streaming services grew exponentially across the board because of the pandemic. And there's been a lot of question about how is Apple weathering the streaming services, which this is about their revenue. So obviously that's not going to matter because nobody's paying for Apple TV Plus yet. But I do wonder whether or not Apple TV Plus is going to weather the storm. If they're not, lots more traffic than they ever were before, then they're looking at a danger zone because everybody grew, Netflix and Hulu
Yeah.
and HBO and Disney, all of these other organizations grew during the last 4 months. But we're not hearing anything about that with Apple. And obviously they don't report numbers, called out like that. But I do wonder whether or not TV Plus saw traffic increases and whether or not they have some plans in place to fix that, which honestly, as much money as they've dumped into TV Plus, they're not letting go of that. They're going to do what they have to do to make it a service that is sustainable. It's just, it might be harder than it would have been had the pandemic not taken place.
Well, I mean, there's clearly the flaw in TV Plus is no catalog. And there's just not enough content to keep people.
Yeah,
there's not enough content to keep people subscribing because you've seen it all. Or you've seen everything you want to see anyway. And Oprah's new book is not going to probably draw much more traffic.
And there's nothing coming. And like if they'd had a Mandalorian or they had a Game of Thrones or they had a Sopranos or they had like one of those things that makes a service for as long as that was showing new episodes, that'd be great. But like you said, the next job after the big hit is I'm bored now. What do I watch after that?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
But they can fix that. It takes time. I mean, HBO didn't have catalog when it started out.
Not running out of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and also TV Plus was always going to be a slow burn anyway. So there were lower expectations for it to, it's not like QB where they're saying, how come you're just doing 17% of what you said you'd do as the absolute minimum? It'd be interesting if there are metrics on when the biggest event that Apple seems to have had was the acquisition of Tom Hanks' Greyhound movie. So it'll be interesting. That would be an interesting metric to take a look at, that when there is something that is well promoted, broad demographic, sort of like an event for Apple TV, even then were people just simply not aware that there is this thing called Apple TV next to Netflix, next to YouTube, next to Hulu, next to Disney Plus that they can actually get entertainment from. Because if the numbers for that were pretty low, that indicates a need for extra work. That would be a concern.
Well, $11.3 billion in profit.
So the most interesting thing for me on the services is that Tim Cook made a commitment to shareholders and to Wall Street that Apple would double their services revenue by this year. And they achieved that 6 months early. And he declined to make another commitment that they would redouble it again over the next 2 years. And a huge portion of that is App Store revenue, way more than it used to. It's still a huge moneymaker.
It's the driver.
And it's one of the most controversial ones. So I'm hoping against hope that his reticence to renew that commitment is because they're rethinking all the stuff we've been talking about with the App Store for the last, several months, years.
Well, we're going to get to the App Store because it's still, it's such a debate. And I kind of respect Alex Lindsay's point of view, which is, hey, Apple built this. If you wanted to open a Forever 21 in the local mall, you wouldn't expect to do it for free. You got to pay rent.
I feel like you get 10 years for that, right? Like your innovation tax gets you 10 years, and then after that, the world changes so much that you've got to figure out a new model.
And there's also exceptions and things you didn't think about, and that's really, I think, it's the edges,
unforeseen.
It's the edge cases that they're getting in trouble. We're going to get to that in a little bit, but enough to say a good quarter, a better than expected quarter for Apple. They did announce
switchers again too.
Say again.
More switchers again too. Tim Cook was very happy to announce that more people were switching to iPhone than before as well, because of the iPhone SE, I think, primarily. And the number of most popular phones they still have is ridiculous in so many markets. It's like they're number 1 and 2 out of 3 in North America, 1, 2, and 3 out of 4, I think, in the United Kingdom, 3 or 4 out of 6 in some of the other markets.